Jian Magen, thanks for joining the podcast. How you doing?
Yes, sir. The CFO himself.
Yes, sir. Well, listen, man, you're, as far as I'm concerned, one of the most badass entrepreneurs around. It's certainly someone I know all the way back from high school. You and your brother have just been killing it, and you guys just always had this amazing dynamic, personalities and vibe, and you started a business way back. And it's always been Magen Boys, but there's been an evolution for sure. And would love to share that story with the audience and the good, the bad, the ugly, and the things that you've been through. So yeah, man, really appreciate you being here.
Hey, man. Thank you for inviting me and thinking that I have a story that's worth telling. I enjoy sharing with anyone who definitely wants to learn or know about it, but it never gets old. So awesome. Happy to be here, dude.
Awesome, man. So maybe just going back to the journey of Magen Boys, how did the whole thing kick off and get started?
I often ask myself that same question, like, how did I get here? How did I become what I am? Or how does this happen? It all just comes together sometimes, but sometimes, it doesn't. And I can't necessarily say it's all because of one thing, but I look at the beginning, I look at the seed of it, and I feel like that's probably where things started and where things began. We didn't have a lot growing up, and whatever we did have was taken from us at a very young age. And we had no choice but to survive and to hustle and to create anything. Just if we wanted to go out, we needed to make the money to do it. If we wanted to buy something, we weren't given that. And that's a big, undertone of how we kind of got here. Having a twin brother is also another advantage. People always say like, oh, you guys are so big or you're so busy. You guys are doing such great things. And it's really, a big part of it is having someone wherever he is, whatever he's doing, having my back, me having his back, and doing it effectively. So those are kind of like the things that I feel have gotten me to where I am. But there's been a lot of circumstance and a lot of situations, and it's never ending. Like I actually, and I say it often, I feel like I'm just starting today. Like whatever I did in the past has nothing to do with what I'm doing in the future. Tomorrow is everything, not yesterday.
Yeah, it's an evolution. There's a lot there that I want to get into, like including the brother, the sibling, and for those that don't know, you got a twin brother. Right. I guess you're technically identical brothers, but eventually I've started to figure out who's who. Yeah, you do sport different looks, but if you had the exact same look, are people still confusing the heck out of you guys?
Yeah, I was just saying this the other day at an event. It's interesting because having a twin brother has always confused people. I see it when I walk into a room. I see people like being like, which one is that? And I can read their lips. However, there are many differences. First of all, he wears a hairpiece, and I think that's something that's important. As well, he's adopted. And so I find it interesting that when people say we look alike, I'm like, I don't see it. But in all seriousness, we've gotten away with a lot of shenanigans by being twins, and some legal, some illegal, some definitely questionable, but in the best ways. We've had a lot of fun with it. We've had tons of fun, and the fun continues now as we've gone from Magen boys to men. Him and I are different, but we're the same, so sometimes it's all based on the other person and the relationship with that person. So I'll go up to someone and I'll be like, oh my God, so good to see you. And if they don't know who I am, it's funny because they get confused because they don't know how to react. And we love to mess with people like that. So
Right.
it just gives a bit of an edge. It's fun.
Right. So like you speak to the advantage of having had your brother, and it's, like it's 2x plus in terms of, the output, and you can be in two places at the same time. And you guys both bring a lot of personality to the table. I'm sure there's strengths and weaknesses, and hopefully there's a lot of complementary stuff there. Clearly there's been, because you guys have done so great together. But a lot of people will say, hey, don't work with family. And it's clearly worked for you. What are some of the things you would, tell others who are thinking about that and working with people? Like, what are the keys when it comes to working with? It doesn't have to be a brother, just any family. Sometimes for folks, that is a road they don't want to go down or are wary of.
Yeah, it's interesting because that's all I know is working with family, working with friends, working with people that I love and care for dearly. And over the years, there's been stats, not a huge percentage, but there's situations that come up in which the relationships are being challenged. However, I think it's the greatest if you can pull it off. It breaks my heart when I hear about families and siblings that have qualms over business and money. I can see in why people don't do it and why people advise not to. And it's fair, right? Family is sacred. And so I don't want to say, do it because it works for me. I think you have to acknowledge how things work for you as a person. And do you foresee conflict? And my brother and I are a little complex in the sense that, like, we didn't have a formal business degrees. We were like special ed students our whole lives. I feel like my brother still is. And I don't know that if someone said to me in the beginning, hey, you better be careful working with your brother, I wouldn't have even thought that would ever be an issue. So it really is to each person. That being said, it feels like all of the old things that we were all taught our whole lives, like stick to what you're good at, stick to what don't mix business and pleasure, or whatever it is, like that, those are all personal, and each person has their own path, especially the stick to what you're good at. Like, I felt that I always like to do other things, and yeah, I didn't do great at everything that wasn't my core, but it was because of those attempts that later in life it really helped me. So advice shouldn't necessarily be taken so strictly, no matter who the person is.
Because everyone's individual and there's a personal aspect to it, and you got to lean into who you are. And
our mother, would literally measure the food she gave us so that it was always like 50-50. And she always instilled that value in us. And maybe that next person who is working with their sibling and now they have a big turmoil or big fight didn't have that. Or maybe they did and never thought that would happen. People are funny, and everyone has a different palette for what they can stand.
What influenced that nature of yours to try things even though they may not have all succeeded, and to kind of build that muscle and develop that muscle from day one? What gave you that confidence, that desire? Was it something from your parents? Was it you and your brother, just the way you guys came up? But yeah, a combination of.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I don't think I would have been able to answer that 5 years ago and before. I would have just said, yeah, that's just what we did. And we just loved to do shit. And it was all about the hustle and the. However, now I actually firmly believe that a lot of the things that I did was impulsive, and it was based on a significant high level of ADHD and having to fulfill that need of always doing and always being stimulated and always having that dopamine fulfilled. So that's how I look at it now. It is that we were wired a bit differently.
But
And
why until 5 years ago? What changed?
I I somehow started going down a path about ADHD and learning about it and how it affects other people and how it affects yourself. And I never really thought about it, but I read a book and the book was like, I'm like, this is about me. Like, this is legitimately, they're talking about me. They're talking about everything from the relationships that I've had to the businesses that I've succeeded or failed at. And I went hard down that path to the point that I'm like very excited about it now and I've embraced it. Whereas I would have been ashamed, maybe. I think it was not, I think lately the whole concept of having, some sort of hyperactive mentality, energy, what have you, was not well received. However, I feel like I'm calmer than I've ever been now knowing about it and understanding how my brain is wired and even the reactivity. Like you don't realize that even when you're working with people who are similar, that sometimes there's like frequencies and triggers that clash. And it has nothing to do with as much as you think of the personality, but actually the chemical and the science of it, which I never even thought about once. And now I'm like so into it, and I catch people, and I love them for it because it's a disability for some, but it's a super strength for others. And it was only till recently that I fully recognized it as my superhero, my super strength.
Amazing. I'm curious if you think that having known that, and I know we're going down a different path here, but had you known what you knew or what you know now, like, read that book way back, might the path have been different? Was sort of not knowing and just being a little bit more reckless in a way, helpful, reckless abandon? I mean, maybe that's the wrong term, but being naive and just going with the instinct and waking up every day and just doing. I wonder if that was a good thing, a good path. Yeah.
I wish I knew, and I wish that somebody listens to this even and says like, "Holy man, that's how I feel." However it happened for me was just in this backwards roundabout way because I was ashamed of that my whole life, right? Up until a point, like, when you're a kid and they're telling you, you're in a special class and you have to take Ritalin and you have to do things differently. Like my brother and I, for like 2 years, 3 years straight, every day when we were kids, had to write, I must calm down, I must slow down 100 times every day. Like we're talking like Bart Simpson shit, okay?
Yeah.
And then that just stopped and life went on and all this stuff happens in my life, right? Like craziness, like pandemonium, Hulkamania running wild, right? Like just complete chaos.
Yeah.
And that origin of the calming down, the slowing down, it was kind of like, it was just thrown away. All that never even kind of came up again. It only came up again recently. I started talking about it. I'm like, Mom, did you really make us do that when we were like 8, 9, 10 years old every day? And she's like, well, that's what the doctor said. That's what the And so it really was tucked away. Yeah. And now it's coming to light. And I do wish I knew what that meant, as opposed to thinking that it was like a stigma of some sorts. Yeah. Or there was something wrong with the way that we've learned. I just kind of felt that I just had to be hiding it and be embarrassed by it, when now I'm actually like, I think that's a cool story. I think that's interesting.
Yeah. And it's still the case that the system, the schools, and I just heard something recently on a podcast where this guy is an educator and he said, we celebrate kids, babies, starting to walk and starting to talk, and we cheer them on. And then as soon as they get into the schoolroom, it's stop talking and stop moving. What allowed you to stay confident?
The confidence came later like not necessarily until later, like when we were like in high school and had a social life. Before that, there was not much confidence. It was like a lot of embarrassment, a lot of teasing, bullying. We were Iranian kids growing up in the 1980s in Toronto, and that's not a favorable place for anyone. Like when we were called the worst of worst names as kids, things that are even by today's standards like completely unacceptable. However, we came into a bit of our own, and it was based on that energy and that output of just making people feel a certain way. And that's what gave us the confidence that people kind of relied on us for, whether it was like their social calendar with the parties that we threw, or just to cause a ruckus or just create a stir or to create hype. And that happened because we didn't have much hype. We didn't realize we needed an audience at an early age. We just were put in front of people, and there was like this, like, oh, look at these two guys. There's these twins, and what are they doing? What are they doing next? Where are they going? What's happening? And we were able to feed off of that and get, a little bit of a lift.
Amazing. So you start doing this, you start getting out in front of people, you're throwing events and parties, you see the response to yourself, and you're kind of feeding and growing off of that, the community you're in front of. When did that actually start to become, whoa, we're really building something real, like this is a real business and a brand? Was there like an intentional approach to building a brand, or was that just organic over time? Like, when did you start to realize this is real and there's a real business here versus we're just out there having fun, making some money, figuring it out?
I think just maybe like last year. In all seriousness, we never like.
Sorry, Jian, for the audience, how old were you guys when you started?
So we've been working since we were kids, right?
Yeah.
We've been hustling since we were kids. It was almost situational. Our parents had the means to do things when we were youth, but made some really, really bad business decisions, and everything in our lives changed by the time we were 10 years old.
Were they entrepreneurs?
Not really. Like, our parents came from very interesting backgrounds, from moving from Iran. They had a lot of privilege. Like, our grandfathers were serious entrepreneurs. One of my dad's dad had a serious real estate portfolio in Iran, whereas my mom's dad was one of the first people to bring aspirin to Iran, and just real sharp business people.
Yeah.
And so whatever they were able to kind of take with them when they moved and came to Canada was enough for a comfortable life. However, they didn't really have the proper infrastructure for things like savings and for investments, and they went all in on a few scenarios, one being the Palace Pier. It's a condo on the lakeshore, and somewhere, you should get the link exactly, but it's considered one of the biggest busts in Canadian real estate history.
Really?
And they had bought 3 penthouses, one for me, one for my brother, one for my sister, as investments. And some shit went down where something happened, and I still don't even have the story. I should probably research it a bit more, but they lost their shirts on that.
Right.
Whatever they had left saved, they put it into a business that they started. My dad and mom were into like carpets and rugs and things like that. And the first day that they opened the door and they had the keys, it was like this really proud moment. I could see it in my family. We were really like excited. And then the next day, like at the front page of like the Toronto Sun was like, Canada to hit largest recession. From that moment, for the next like 2 years, there was such turmoil in our lives. And our parents were struggling, and their interest rates on their mortgage went through the roof, and they had done all these. They bought all the inventory, bought all the racking, bought all the this, bought all, they souped it up when the timing was terrible, and we had to go to work with them on the weekends because they couldn't afford a babysitter anymore. As the weeks went on, we had seen that they were opening a flea market a few doors down. So we're like, okay, well, let's just go there. And so we would go with our parents to work, and we would just like go around this market, and we would start to look at different things that people were selling, whether it was video games. I remember I bought a Public Enemy tape there, right? I was like, okay, cool, I'm going to buy music. But there were people buying and selling baseball cards, and we were like, I remember when we were like 4 years old, 5 years old, we used to go and get chips, and we would on a Saturday when we'd watch the hockey game with our dad, and he would buy us a pack or two. I was like, what happened to those cards that we had? We used to have tons of cards because we started seeing that people were selling these cards. And I'm like, oh, I think I've seen that card before. I've seen that card before. And so we tore apart our basement, and we had so much junk in our house. Our parents kind of just didn't throw things away. And we had found the bag, like inside of another bag, inside of a luggage, like totally tucked away. And we were like, oh shit. And so we took those cards to the thing, and whereas the weeks prior, these guys were, no one was really paying attention to us, but now they're looking, they're saying, oh, okay, look at this, look what you got. And so we would go to the flea market every week, and we would now start buying and selling cards, and it became our playground. And I'll never forget, we got hustled a bunch of times, and we learned from it, and we had to defend ourselves. And this is all at a young age, right? Where people were seeing, kids with these valuables, and they were trying to take advantage. And it's something interesting because I still do the card circuit I now do with my kids with the Pokemon stuff and the sports cards. And I'm always being like, some guy's going to walk up to you and make you an offer on that card. You're just going to take it just because you want the money. You have to make sure you're not getting hustled. And so those early days were a real instrumental, component of how we had this skill set and this ability to make shit happen. And, you said something before where like every person has their own makeup and their own DNA. Well, it's like, okay, if we're all iPhones, okay, maybe there's some people that are Android, and maybe some people are Apple or whatever. And then, okay, but they're both phones. We're both humans. But now it's the apps you have on your phone, and it's the operating system. And that's what makes everyone different. And that's definitely an app in my internal hard drive.
Yeah. And I guess the experience with your parents and the difficulty they went through that you saw and had a front row to, that could go both ways. That could scare you away from taking risks as well. How has that influenced how you guys run a business?
It's interesting. There's definitely, my brother and I always talk about that. It's like, where did we learn that? How did that happen? Where did we get that from? Why did we react this way? Definitely that whole thing combined with the ADHD, right? Like the ADHD causes a lot of people pain, and we had that pain when we shouldn't have, right? One of the main things about ADHD is you always think for the worst. You always go straight to the doom and gloom. I thought that's just what it was. That's just normal. But it's not, and it's not fair. And I'm so grateful that like I now can shut that noise off in my head. Whereas I just figured like, oh yeah, like tomorrow I'm going bankrupt every day of my life. And it's good because it really, really ruthlessly motivated us. to fucking grind and hustle and think that like literally it's all going to end. It's kind of interesting because it's just not true, but we believed it. And it's really kind of, it just set us on fire because we were always trying to make sure that whatever happened to our parents, it wasn't going to happen to us.
It's amazing to channel things in a way that can be positive versus, you can look at that and say it would have stopped you guys from trying things, trying new things, being sort of adventurous in a way in your business. But one thing that has occurred to me, you guys dominate in certain segments. For sure, the bar mitzvah scene in Toronto comes to mind. Much more than that, and I guess competition. There are certain things I think about. I'm like, well, that would be Magen Boys, but I don't even know who the second that I'd call. And this could be because of the community we're in. But I want to understand competition and how you think about that in the marketplace. And when you solidify yourself as a brand, you also recognize that nothing lasts forever, or, before you, there have been leaders in a segment. How do you think about competition? What do you do to differentiate yourself in the market and, keep that edge? And maybe it is what you spoke to, which is that fear of losing keeps you going. But yeah, how do you maintain that?
At different points of the journey, it's evolved, right? And for the most part, it was based off of necessity and this never-ending thirst to achieve and to make something happen for ourselves when we were told many times in our lives, whether it was from our teachers, principals, former bosses, you guys aren't going to do shit, right? And that was a lot of jet fuel for us. However, now I look at things way differently, and I think COVID interrupted that. COVID changed the way a lot of people think, and a lot of people just act on a daily basis when it comes to business. I don't look at things anymore like competition or not. Like, we could be all selling pizza, but we're doing our pizza, and our pizza is our pizza. Like, you can't replicate our pizza. For us, we pride ourselves on being community first, working with people on the most important day of their family's lives. It has a special currency for us more than ever now. We never had a bar mitzvah, right? My brother and I weren't fortunate enough to have a bar mitzvah. And I've said this story before. I just said it recently. But our version of a bar mitzvah was our mother on the phone with a man in like the mountains of Iran, speaking to a man who was slaughtering a goat. And she was like, "Did you do it yet?" And like, and that yet was for this man to kill the goat and then take the meat and give it to the needy. And that was our bar mitzvah. So it's kind of unconventional, where, it's like a baseball player wanted to play baseball his whole life, right? Or had a desire to do something, follow their dream. For us, that wasn't really in the cards. It was really a matter of, we found something that we enjoyed so much that it didn't feel like work. And it still doesn't. Like, the work part of my job is like admin, just shit that you gotta deal with running a business. But the product has always been all about making people happy. And so I feel like for others, there's money, there's performance, there's different things that drive different people. But for us, our differentiating factor is that we get to make people happy for a living. And that's the ultimate currency. So
how do you scale that beyond you and your brother? You guys have these larger than life personalities. You know how to, get the crowd into
You
it.
haven't seen me do it in a while. I don't know about that anymore.
I saw you get up maybe a year ago at a bar mitzvah, and you killed it. And I was like, okay, these guys still have it. But it gets to a point where it can't just be you guys, and you have to make that secret sauce sort of more institutionalized across the business. So the people you hire and what they bring and how you pass that on. And so how do you do that throughout an organization that is bigger than just the two of you now?
Yeah, it's a good question. And we're very grateful that we have found a way to bottle it and to serve it and to work with people who we feel have that same energy and aura. So, without giving away all the trade secrets, we definitely have formatted it in a way that remains fresher than fresh, but customized so that it's not like redundant, so that no one feels that they're getting the same thing that someone else got, which is, that's a skill. And that comes with planning, that comes with just teaching. We have everything from a DJ school to night classes with our performers, playbooks, what have you. There's only so much that Paige and I can teach people, like, without being at the event. But we've really developed a core operations team of people who have bought in to the culture and believe in the mission. And I actually don't feel like that's the challenge. This weekend we did probably like 22 bar mitzvahs across North America, and we could have done another 22 more. So we're not worried about that, but that's just one component of the business, right? It's not all about the bar mitzvahs, although it is what we're famously synonymous for, which is great. To be the king of anything is or considered the king. I don't call myself that, but to be considered the king of anything,
yes,
is always a good thing. And so we're just going.
You said that's not the biggest challenge. What is the biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge is the emotions that go into it, and the clients, are going through such an important day, and we never, ever, ever phone it in. But everyone's different and everyone handles things different. And you have to play, to a certain extent, a bit of a therapist, because for the mother, this could be the first event that she had since this happened, or the kid might be anxious, or the kid is so set on not having X, Y, and Z music, and you have to give them what they want. And so you take all those details, and no one can not make them feel important.
So yeah, you've got to, at scale, help people and deliver on what is one of the most important days of their lives. And doing that at scale is not a small feat. And you take that personally as an obligation.
Yeah, on the entertainment side, okay? That's a big thing, right? Like, the entertainment has to be done a certain way with a certain amount of care. I get calls all the time from people, especially where we're not known, because we're now all over North America. So people are like, hey, I heard about you guys from a friend of a friend of a friend. I never heard about you. However, I thought I'd give it a try. And with all transparency, we're speaking to two other people. And so we just wanted to make sure our kid, we respected her wishes. By the end of the conversation, they're like, oh my God, like, you guys are getting the gig just based on this conversation. And that's cool. And that's a different ball game now, when we realize, like, the way that we talk to people, the way we make people feel, the way that we communicate is a part of the secret sauce.
That's a really interesting insight, which is like, you do something great and you're known in the market that people call you because like you're the only name they would ever consider for it. Um, but then when you get into hey, they're coming in kind of cold, you're one of three people or five people they're calling, you're just sort of like, hey, let's do what we do. And we're still going to win that, as opposed to let's try to change how we approach and write RFPs or whatever, whatever the heck. It's like stick to what you're great at, stay in your lane, and you're still going to win that.
And we didn't know that Toronto had this swagger to it.
Right.
We
Interesting.
didn't. We always felt, oh, when you're going to LA or New York or these big markets, you're like, you're just going to be this small fish, but that's not how it works. Actually, it's transferable. It's the same way, that some of the top artists in the world are from Toronto.
Right.
It's not a coincidence.
So talk about the evolution a little bit beyond the entertainment. I mean, we're talking about beyond bar mitzvah, but COVID was something you mentioned. I know that was a big turning point in some ways, but just talk about what you guys do now, how you look at the business, how it's constructed, and how you got there effectively. Like, was COVID one of the big turning points as how you looked at the business?
Totally big. Yeah. It was the big reset for us. Our company imploded. Like there was no way to sugarcoat it. The shit hit the fan, and no one had a playbook right about it. No one had okay, here's what you do. Okay, there was just only words of comfort and words of support. However, we had no choice but to now recreate and reinvent, and something that we hadn't done really. With the exception of like the weekend to weekend creativity and ways to level up the different events we did and really step up for people, there was not like this, like, okay, here, we're gonna, you try once a year, you do some like spring cleaning of the business and the policies, and now you got like complete silence, okay? And then you got the world also in this standstill, right? So we looked at each other, and actually it was a rabbi who had reached out to us within a few weeks and was like, listen, guys, I know what you're going through right now. I can only give you this type of advice. You guys are special. What you've built is special. And you need to know that when this is all said and done, just like in the movie 300, there's going to be two guys left standing, and it's going to be the two of you guys. And that was very comforting for me. That is what really kind of like was like, oh shit. And that was only a few weeks into COVID, where really like there was like pandemonium running. It was like the Ultimate Warrior running to the ring. And it was like just everything was just chaos and just a really crazy time. But we had this calm fall upon us somehow. It was as if like, hey, you're losing money, you're losing your shirt, but you look back and you say, like, when you're doing 20, 30, 40, 50 events in a week, and then, all the things that come with it and all the logistics and the planning and the for sure shit, something goes wrong, because that's just the nature of that world that we're in, and last minute switches, and then dealing with people who are so emotional. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, all you now need to do is just wear a mask and social distance. Well, hang on, which one was more chaotic? Because wearing a mask and not leaving your house it's pretty easy. Yeah, you're losing money and you're trying to figure out how to make money, but it's definitely not as stressful in a certain way. At least it was for us. Like I don't want to. Everyone's different. But for us, there was like this, like almost like this, like
calm you've never had.
Yeah, like we just didn't even. It was just calm, and so that calm made us realize, like, you know what, we're gonna be okay. We're gonna figure this out, and really quickly we did, and we never looked back. And so everything now that we're kind of dealing with in our business and in our life is born from the COVID experience. And the easiest way for me to describe it is that we kind of became like Tesla. We went from gas and emissions and like all this toxins into the environment to like green energy, right? Cool, no freaking out. Nothing could be worse than what we just went through. Nothing. So that really helped us. And now everything that we're doing is thinking like that. So it's trickling down amongst all of our different ventures and all of our different businesses. But it was that explosion that really has propelled us to this next level.
So when you talk about Tesla now, and you guys have evolved, but like more innovative, more sustainable, and that comes with a lot of meaning in the sense that you can go in different directions. You maybe don't have the same hyper focus. But talk a bit about going in different paths, different directions. I know passion plays a big part in what you guys do and what you spend your time on and what you sink your teeth into. How do you manage both having now multiple segments of the business and different channels and different kind of business lines and different interests and passions, at the same time maintaining focus so that things don't get back to too much chaos?
So now it's a good segue here, because the key thing that occurred in COVID was that my brother and I had to like divide and conquer. And it was at that time where I said, okay, I felt that he was, I don't want to say getting burnt out, but like we were working together side by side for 20 years. And reflecting on that, I feel like we never worked at 2.0. We were like 1.5 because we weren't necessarily always aligned. He wanted to do this, I wanted to do that. And so we didn't get the full maximum of the two of us. And it was at that time where it was like, okay, look, one of us is going to have to go and hustle and make money, while the other one's going to have to keep this dam from overflowing. I decided that I was going to be the guy to do it. I just was ready for it. And I kind of said, I got this. You go now and figure out what we're going to do. And that's really the big takeaway for us, was that we were now able to go separate ways, even though we're still fully partners and we're still brothers 100%. It just actually like helped us kind of separate, and he can handle a new side of the business, whereas I'm going to handle the existing business. So I took over all the venues, all the equipment, all the talent, all the clients, all the things that kind of brought me, here on this call that you think is like, okay, that this is what we're talking about. This is the events business, the Magen Group. We went from Magen Boys to Magen Group. And then he had to go and mine and figure shit out. And that's where he went. And so ultimately that was a critical time for us. And it kind of gave us this new lease, even though the lease was a bit funky.
How does that then come back together in a way that brings the whole thing into one picture? Like, is what he's gone to do, Paige has gone out and sort of leveraged, you guys have a vast network, and now there's much more of a B2B, like corporate side. Like, what's the vision? And, where are you now? What's next level? What are you thinking? Because there's a lot. And then, we didn't even get into half of the stuff, the whole wrestling stuff, the production stuff. There's the media side, but we're talking about North America. I mean, that's a lot. What's next level? Like, what do you like what's keeping you up now? What do you want to accomplish for Magen Group in the next decade?
So it's kind of happening. It's been or a lot of things that happen organically, right? Because it's got to feel a certain way, and we have to also recognize that we were so synonymous with a certain thing, right? That no matter how smart someone is, they yeah, I heard this even again recently. Someone was like, they saw us at a bar mitzvah and they're like, hey, we're having this corporate event. I really wish you guys did more of these because like we really could use this at our events. And I'm like, well, what makes you think we can't? They're like, oh, I don't know. I only see you here. Well, I'm like, because you see us here and it says our company name and we're like hyping it up. Maybe you saw us somewhere else, but we didn't do the same hype up and we didn't have our name because we're like white labeling or we're doing things, where it's not the same rah, 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 but it is. And so we've had to really re-educate people on how to think about us, which is great. Because even in the short time that we've been doing this, like everything has been really healthy and growing fast. And some of our biggest events we've ever done are all happening in this last year. All we had to do was just make a phone call and talk to people and audit and just provide a level of expertise, which we have. It's the same speaker, it's the same lights, it's the same microphone. So of course we do conferences and AGMs and concerts or what have you. So ultimately, to answer your question, it's like we're in this phase now where we're like, we'll do whatever we want and we'll cherry pick the events we want and the people we want to work with so that we could then do the other things and the other businesses that we're now involved in. And so those other businesses are all cousins for what we're doing. It's not like we can come and provide and much knowledge for someone if they wanted to start like a keyboard business. And so we're really now through my brother's side of the business, Magen Ventures, and you talk about competition, right? We are loving the opportunities that are being put in front of us for us just to be, and as you know this very well, a fractional assistance and fractionally lending or providing, whether it's problem solving, whether it's creative introductions, all the things that are some of the hardest things that you could ever ask for are come naturally to us.
It sounds like the common thread is maybe something like connection, or human connection. There's something to be said for that. But like the ventures piece, connect with other people. I mean, just the fact that you've got this network you've amassed from building trust with individuals, with people. I guess every business can use. There's that common thread, right? It's bringing passion to the table. It's it's inspiring the people around you, building community. I can imagine how with Magen Ventures that becomes easy to start to translate. I mean, you gave one example, but I can imagine that spans so many different types of businesses. And so do you find at this stage a lot of advice you're giving folks? I'm sure the next up and coming entrepreneurs are asking you questions. And so you've probably had to reflect a lot on how you can best impart knowledge and wisdom. Something we always ask guests on this podcast, but if you can go back to the young Jian, what would you tell yourself something that you didn't know then that you know now?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the science of it, like what we discussed before.
Yeah, fair.
And that comes with maturity. However, can you put the maturity in a pill for a second and have people listen to you when you're at a point where you're not willing to take advice or even know how to process it? I look back and when I do give advice, and I love to talk to people and young entrepreneurs or just people in general who are, interested to learn. I look at it and say, like, there's so much advice being thrown out. Everyone's an influencer. Everyone's got like a shtick and a hook, but it's the most basic, the most dumbed down information that you get is the most valuable. Okay. You hear about the rainy day. You heard about it your whole life, right? Save your money for a rainy day. What rainy day? What are you talking about? It's bullshit. Well, hang on a second. There is such thing as a rainy day, right? And just work hard, play hard. Like, you just think that's just like a buzzwords and slang. But in actuality, what does it really mean? It means, if you're gonna hustle, okay, you better give yourself a pat on the back, and you better enjoy what you've worked your ass off, right? Because without it, then you can get sunk. And so it's all about the little bite-sized pieces of advice. Just hustle. You work hard, okay? Out hustle everybody. You don't need to be the smartest, the most connected, you just got to hustle. And you have to out hustle everybody. And you have to look multiple steps ahead on everything that you're doing. Otherwise, you're just going to fall behind. It's a race.
Work hard, stay humble behind you. And one thing I know about you, man, is you do embody that. And when I say stay humble, I just mean, like, I've seen you on stage, at events, and you're clearly doing what you love. And when the lights turn off and the mics turn off, you're the same guy, and you're so authentic. You're such a good dude. And I just really love that about you. And I've always enjoyed observing your success from far and close, and just really, really appreciate what you guys do and what you do in the community. And I'll also say, when it comes to the Jewish community and anti-Semitism, and I know you're on that journey as well and doing what you can to help. And so, you put that out there, and with Iran, I know the history you have in that part of the world. So there's a lot beyond business that's happening in the world that you're dealing with, that we all are in the community. So respect to you for everything you're doing, and really appreciate it, man. Really appreciate you doing this.
Thanks, man. No, look, it's an interesting time for our people, for the Iranian people, for everybody. Ironically, for me, it's like, I love engaging with people on any side, because you can't say shit to me. I'm both. I'm the most loved and hated man on the planet, being Iranian and Jewish, right? And I feel like there's a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of miseducation. Like, it's sad because the world's suffering from that divide, but someone wise recently said, one candle can light the darkness. And that's our jobs, is to continue to have hope and to be the light. And that's it. Like, I'm happy that if even one person gets some of that and is inspired, like, that's the greatest accomplishment.
Hey, man, it's a great message to end on, and I agree. Light will always be darkness, and we just got to keep at it. And I think this all is part of the interconnectivity of business, spanning into personal and life. And really appreciate you joining us today, man, and hope you'll do it again sometime.